Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest is Chad Neale, zooming in from San Diego. Chad Neale is a seasoned executive with nearly 25 years of cybersecurity risk management experience. He is the principal at Cyblade, providing cybersecurity and technology risk transaction advisory to private market clients, and recently led Alliance M&A Technology Cybersecurity Transaction Advisory Practice as the SVP of Alliance Cyber M&A Services. In the past decade, he's honed his experience within private markets, empowering sponsors and the portfolio companies to identify and pragmatically address technology-driven risks and opportunities for maximized value creation. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you, Danny. Great to be part of the podcast.
Yes. Honored to have you here. Tell us a little bit about the importance of cybersecurity and how that works in your world.
Thanks, Danny. Happy to. Well, you can't, pick up a paper today without reading about another breach that has compromised information, either personal information or business information. Ransomware is all the scourge right now. So it's a very dynamic field. I've been in this field now for the past 25 years. Was very fortunate in my early days of my career, having really good mentors that introduced me to cybersecurity concepts, and I got some really good training up front to focus on what it takes to harden systems, minimize the attack surface so the bad actors can't get a foothold. Over the last 10 years, I've really pivoted my career where I had been more of a generalist providing cybersecurity across various industries with firms like PwC. I've been very much focused in delivering these types of services to private equity firms and specifically down to their portfolio companies. So either in a transaction when they're looking to acquire a company, I help them look at those businesses and make sure they understand what they're getting. Every transaction is going to have a bit of a story behind it as it relates to technical debt and cybersecurity. So you want to understand that story going into the transaction. Rarely does it lead to the buyer deciding not to go forward, but you go into it with your eyes wide open. You understand the kind of costs that are going to be associated with addressing the technical debt or the risks that are uncovered during due diligence. And then post-acquisition, I'm working very closely with private equity across their existing portfolio to make sure that those companies are not easy targets and they can stay focused on their mission, which is creating greater value for their investors and preparing those companies for the exit.
That's really interesting that I guess as these PE firms look at the companies they're going to acquire, that becomes part of the cost in securing the data that they're using, because maybe the current operators didn't spend as much time or efforts in securing their data because they weren't that big, right?
Right. And what was their focus? It was building a business, right? And they'll have some general cybersecurity controls because everybody understands today you have to do something, but it's usually pretty nascent when you're looking at the middle market or lower middle market investments that these PE firms are investing in. So yeah, absolutely. There's definitely, not only from a cybersecurity standpoint, but also technical debt, right? They're delaying that computer upgrade. They're delaying bringing in new servers as long as they can, especially when they're getting ready for the exit. They're trying to manage costs. They want EBITDA to look really good and entice the buyer. So you need to understand, and private equity has done a good job over the last 3 to 5 years, really focusing more on technology and cybersecurity as part of the transaction, so they can put those costs into their models and have a better idea what their investment thesis outcome should look like in the next 3 to 5 years of the hold.
Yeah, now you're mentioning firms, but can we deviate just a tiny bit and go with, just regular small businesses? Maybe they're not large businesses, maybe one, two, three operators. You never hear about them having to secure their data, but I guess everybody should. And do these
Absolutely.
guys go after larger firms, or do they go after everybody? Like we're all on the chopping
Yeah.
block here.
Yeah, everyone's in the crosshairs these days. The attacks have been largely automated. The bad actors don't even necessarily need to have any kind of talent, because you can go on the dark web and you can actually hire a ransomware for service and target a company, and the creators of this service will direct the attack on your behalf towards these companies. So nobody is really outside of the purview of this. So you need to invest some time and energy in cybersecurity risk management, right? But these smaller business that you're talking about, they're not going to look the same as a large healthcare company would, right? So the way that you approach it is different. And one of the things that I really have focused on in my career within private equity, because they are investing in these smaller companies, right? These companies are $5 to $50 million, or 50 to 150. So it's pretty wide range. But across the board, you're having to take a very pragmatic approach to cybersecurity.
Right.
There's not enough time and budget to do everything. So you need to think very strategically, what am I going to do first? And what am I going to do next? And realize that it's not a project with an end date. Cybersecurity risk management is an ongoing challenge that you need to bring all of your risk management discipline as business leaders to this topic, and be very strategic, partner with some really good trusted advisors that are not going to take advantage of you, but instead help you build a pragmatic solution so that you're not going to fall easily victim to those more opportunistic attacks, and be able to focus on running your business instead.
Right. Now, what makes you different? You're in a competitive space.
Yeah.
And what makes you different than your competitors, where when a PE firm's trying to figure out who they're going to hire, they want to hire you rather than somebody else?
Well, I think a couple things that I bring to the table that differentiates me from the competition is first of all, I've been doing this now in private equity for just about 10 years, this type of risk management program. And when I first started, private equity is very interested in cybersecurity, but they weren't necessarily ready to make very many investments. Even in the transaction, they weren't spending a ton of time thinking about cybersecurity. But I've worked in this area for many years. I understand the culture that private equity operates under and how they manage their portfolio companies. So I've really been part of the education of this market, of why this is really important. And through that relationship I've had with private equity, I've learned how to bring this solution in a way that's cost effective, right? It moves the needle, right? It has to make a difference in the security posture at the portfolio company, and bringing the breaches down. And then working very closely with the portfolio companies, understanding the dynamics of being owned by private equity and some of the stressors that are between that relationship, and help them navigate that so they're getting the right kind of support from their owners when it comes to cybersecurity risk management, right? Because you need to get these things approved from a budget standpoint. If the board doesn't get it, then you're not going to get the kind of investments you need to effectively manage this.
Right. Now, what comes easy to you, or others might find challenging?
I think easy is a relative term, right? But what I'm able to do is, and this is challenging, is have the conversations with the private equity owners, the operating partners, help them understand how this is an important risk for them to manage, convincing them is not as hard as it was a few years ago because they've all had breaches at the portfolio company. But what I'm able to do very effectively is help them see the impact that a program like this will have on their daily schedule and their lives, right? Many of these operating partners have this responsibility built into their role, but very few have any time to dedicate to this. Right. So I'm able to help them understand how this is going to make their lives better and how it ends up leading to better value creation at the portfolio company, so they're more prepared for that exit.
Now, if somebody's listening to us and they start realizing because of our conversation how important cybersecurity is to them, and they just don't know where to start, what do you suggest they do to try to either investigate or start advising somebody that can look at those systems and kind of figure out what they need or what they're lacking?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to, as I alluded to before, put on your risk management hat and look at this as any kind of risk you need to manage in the operation of your business, right? So that means you can't do everything. That means you're going to have to accept some level of risk, right? But you want to be strategic about it. So that's the first thing you want to do is don't think that this is something that you need to just kind of blast out and have it done. It's one and done. There is no silver bullets, right? If anybody promises you that there is 100% security and it's just this tool, they're blowing smoke, right? So once you get that mindset, then I think the next thing you want to do is you want to look at your organization from a risk perspective. What are the threats that are germane for your business as it relates to cybersecurity that could impact your business, right? So that's usually getting to some time with someone that's been doing these types of risk assessments and really putting together like what are the risks that are relevant for your business, and then you've got to prioritize those risks, right? Because like I said, you're not going to be able to knock them all down, but what are the key risks you absolutely want to focus on mitigating? Then what you need to do is look at your business and say, do I have the controls in place today to address those risks, right? Have I made those investments already? If I have, are they enough, right? And then once you've got this picture of the gaps that you have in the control posture, now you can start putting together a prioritized roadmap, right? Where you're looking at those gaps and you're putting together a 12, 18, 24-month plan to execute those gaps. So that's how I would start, right? Is understanding your risk, looking at the controls you have in place to address those risks today, identifying the gaps, and then get started.
Right. Yeah, it's like so much, but something that's just so important right now to be able to protect your data and your customers.
Yeah. And I like to stress when I'm talking to leaders of businesses that, yeah, this is a technical issue. It's not necessarily an IT issue, though. many of those risks that you uncovered during the conversation around the risk management, they're going to be business related risks, and you need business stakeholders to appreciate how that risk could manifest and then think through what type of solutions that you have. And they're not always going to be an IT focused risk, right? It could be a business risk. So you want to make sure when you're doing this, you have the right people at the table, basically representatives across the business that can speak to how these types of risks could threaten the way that they operate, and then start thinking about the solutions. And many of those will be technical in nature, but the IT person is not the person to sit down in a one-on-one session and ask them what the risks are, right? It should be flipped. The business is telling the IT person or cybersecurity what the risks are, and then thinking through what those solutions are going to look like.
That's interesting that you bring it up, because I would have thought that that's kind of interrelated, but I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, IT is there to make sure your machines are working, to make sure they're updated and you have all the applications that you need to get your job done, but not necessarily managing the infiltration by somebody who doesn't belong in it.
So I would just put it a little differently. That you started off exactly the way that I would have described it. The conclusion, though, is when it comes time to make a decision on what my greatest risks are to the business and what I'm going to invest in to mitigate, that should not be a decision that the IT person is making. They don't have the proper information about business risks to prioritize. So the business has to help them understand, based on these threats, what are our priorities? And now let's talk about what kind of solutions those are. And those can be administrative solutions, technical solutions, or physical solutions. And you have to kind of think through those with them.
Right. Wow. There's just so much.
So many times, right? I talk to a CEO or a CFO about cybersecurity risk management, and they just discount it as an IT issue. And they're not engaged at the level that they really need to be engaged.
Right. And then once you get caught and you get some ransomware and they lock up your data, then like, oh shoot, now it's number one.
Yes. And let me tell you, the executives are all engaged at that point. And if they haven't done the legwork up front,
right,
it's going to be a very difficult situation to manage and work through.
So that's like so much information you're feeding us here, and it took you so many years to become an expert at it. What has been one of your greatest challenges in your career?
The greatest challenge that I'm really passionate about is helping organizations build this type of service that they can bring to private markets and grow a business. So, I mean, that's what I wake up every day really excited about. I was at ACA, what was that, 4 years ago, spent about 5 years with them and helped them look at this business strategy and be able to build a team and bring in clients and really build a business around this. So that's challenging, right? You've got to build the team, you've got to bring in the clients, you have to develop the services. That's a tremendous challenge. It's what I am really passionate about. I just got done doing that at Alliant. Alliant had absolutely zero cybersecurity consulting services. They're an insurance broker, but they really wanted to break into private equity from a technology and cybersecurity standpoint. So I was hired to develop the team, and in this case, kind of a clean sheet of paper around the services, and then bring it to the market. And that was just an amazing experience, super challenging. Like every day were super long days, but at the conclusion of that engagement, they now have a very strong transaction advisory practice with a number of PE clients and a really nice pipeline to continue to grow that business. Wow. Since that time, now I've concluded that in December, and I've started my own consulting practice. I had a lot of my clients say, Chad, why aren't you doing this yourself and build something a little bit more bespoke? And so now I've established Cyblade and bringing a lot of those same services, but more from a boutique standpoint. So we can spend a little bit more time with each of our clients and really deliver top risk management services.
Wow, that's great, Chad. Looks like things are going well for your business, and you just started, but that's like awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Many business owners, such as yourself, also look for additional ways to supplement their income or to help set them up for retirement.
Yeah.
Potentially with passive investments aside from business. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you've really got to diversify. I've been fortunate enough to, through the work I do with private equity clients and some private equity firms, I've been able to, come in and invest in some of these firms that have a fund that are dedicated to certain industries. There's certain things you have to do to become a an investor along those lines, it's a pretty low bar. So I would say, that is a really great way. The private markets continue to outperform public markets. And so it's a nice way to, have a little bit more control in your investment than, something like a 401k. But you're also not the one that's making the ultimate decisions on what companies you're investing in. It's more of a fund strategy.
Right.
And you're partnering with a PE firm with a track record of success.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome, because that way it diversifies your own portfolio. And I think usually some of those returns are a little bit juiced up, whereas you can't get the same type of return with the stock market and securities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So as we wrap up the interview, what exciting plans do you have for 2025? What does that look like?
Yeah, 2025, I think, the end of 2024, it felt like a lot of firms that I work with, the PE firms, were kind of in a holding pattern. It'd been, frankly, a pretty rough I'd say 18 months from a due diligence standpoint. Transaction volume was way down. There's definitely deals getting done, right? But the volume was low. So I'm really excited, with the new administration, maybe not as much certainty as we hoped there would be after the new administration came on board, but at least people know, what they're managing over the next 4 years. And interest rates look like they could go down. I'm very excited about the opportunity to be able to support private equity as they start to see more of these deals, and bring more AI to the delivery of these services. So I'm very excited about what AI is doing from a consulting and professional service standpoint. Those are just some of the things, Danny.
Wow, exciting. And Chad, you've provided so much insight on cybersecurity. And so if any of our audience is listening and would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a great way to connect with me. The Cyblade site is on LinkedIn. Reach out to me through there, or email me at chad.neale@cyblade.net. And my last name is Neale. Don't forget the E.
Very good. All right, Chad, thanks so much for joining us. And to our audience, please go to OC Power Players and follow us on your favorite channel. And don't forget to like us.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.